Whether you are motivated or not, the skill you must master above any other skill in this life is that of taking action. If you cannot get yourself to take action, you will not accomplish your goals. It is the single most important habit to reaching your potential and accomplishing your goals. And yet so many people wonder, how do I get myself to take action? Let me explain to you why it is so important. Every experience you have in life comes down to one of three things and three things only. It comes down to something you think, something you feel, or something you do. You have no experiences in life outside of those three things. But of those three things, what you think, what you feel, and what you do, which one is the most important? Which is the only one that has the power to influence the outside world? It's obvious. It's what you do. It's the actions that you take. So you have to overemphasize action rather than thoughts and feelings if you want to produce results and make progress. Get out there and take action. Like the old adage goes, you can't steer a car until it's in motion. And there's a really cool example of this, of two ships that shipwreck on the same island around the same time in the late 1800s. On Auckland Island, which is about 285 miles away from New Zealand, one of those ships was captained by a man named Thomas Musgrave. And they wreck, there were 4 on board, and as soon as they wreck, they take action. They start salvaging what they can, they get onto the island, and over time, they actually, with their bare hands, build a cabin, they make a forge so that they can build and produce other tools, and they sustain themselves on the island for 2 years before ultimately creating their own escape plan and finding their way off of the island. What's so fascinating about this is that at the same time, another ship wrecks on the island, on the opposite side of the island, with 19 men. On that ship, the captain falls apart and so do the crew, and they don't take action. Ultimately, of that crew of 19, only 3 of them survived their time on the island. So what was the difference between Captain Musgrave's crew and the 19? It was simple. It was taking action. Captain Musgrave didn't know any more about the island than the other ship. They didn't have any more resources, and in many ways, because they were a crew of 4, they had fewer resources. They weren't any better prepared to be shipwrecked. And yet they took immediate small actions and continued to take those over the course of 2 years, which ultimately got them off of the island. Now that's a really dramatic example, but regardless of what your goal is or what you're trying to accomplish, you have to have that mindset of just taking immediate small actions to move you forward. And this is where people butt up against motivation. Let me explain something to you. Motivation is simply desire plus action. The desire alone is not motivated. And the reason we know that is because the only way to tell if somebody is motivated is if they're taking action. So many of you already have the desire. That's why you're reading, that's why you're listening to podcasts, that's why you're watching videos. It's probably why you're watching this video right now. You have the desire. All you need is the action. But you're looking at these big, huge actions and they feel overwhelming. You need to break it down and look at the small actions. And what's incredible about this is so many people believe that motivation always precedes action. It always comes first. That desire piece has to come first. Well, that's not the way it has to work, because action itself actually perpetuates action. If you start taking small actions today, even those that take 30 or 60 seconds to accomplish, it will inspire and motivate you to take further actions in the future. Don't wait until you have this massive buildup of desire before you start doing the very small things. Now that we understand this, that action is the only thing that has the ability to influence the outside world, that you need to start before you're ready, and that action perpetuates action, what you really need to know is how to take action. Well, the first step that you can take in defining what action to take is to break it down or to chunk it. So we call this chunking. And chunking is where you take your big goal and you start breaking it down into the smaller goals and smaller activities that will lead to that big goal. When you focus so much on just the big goal, it can feel incredibly overwhelming, way too much to handle, and that is demotivating and it's difficult. It's also difficult to know which action to take. Look, if my goal is to climb Mount Everest, and that's all I focus on is the summit of Everest, where do I even start? Well, that's the purpose of chunking. When you break that big goal down into all of the small things that will produce that goal, accomplish that goal, now you start to see how doable it really is. Some people can chunk their goals into just 4 or 5 things and they're ready to go even though they're still big. Some people need to break them down into even the most minute type of goal or action. I have a good example of doing this myself. At one point, we lived about a mile from the gym that I went to. And I had this goal of running to the gym and then being able to work out once I got there. And it was perfect, about a nice little mile run to the gym and then I could work out. But I was nowhere close to having the fitness to do that. And so I started one day and I just got running. And I reached this specific telephone pole, probably a little over 3/4 of the way there, and I was done, I was tired. So I stopped at that telephone pole and I walked the rest of the way. And then what I did is I said, you know what? I'm gonna accomplish this goal of being able to run to the gym and then work out, but I'm gonna have to do it in tiny, tiny increments. So I literally marked the sidewalk squares. I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 feet. I marked them and knew every day that's the one I have to make it to. And every day I pushed myself to reach 1 square farther. And guess what? After doing that repeatedly, sure, it took a long time, but after doing that repeatedly, I accomplished my goal of making it to the gym and being able to work out. You have to do it 1 small step at a time. That's the only way to do it. So, chunking is the first step. Take your big goal and break it down into the small, doable tasks. Some people have tried that, and you say, well, I've already tried that and I failed. I promise you that you either didn't break it down into small enough pieces, or your goal wasn't big enough to motivate you. It's one of those 2 things. Now, once you've chunked your goal into smaller pieces, the next step you need to take is you need to make your progress visible. You need to see some way or somehow that you are making progress. Whether that's marking it down on a chart, whether that's tracking it on your phone, whether that's taking pictures of yourself, whatever it is, you have to show yourself on a regular basis that you are making progress. Make it visible so you can reflect and say, man, the last week was a little rough and difficult, but guess what? I got 1 or 2 steps closer to my goal in just that week. It's like the Lego example in the ebook that you have a chance to read, which talks about those who were building the Lego sets and had them sit on their desk after they made them were more motivated and inspired to keep building them even though they got paid less for each one. Whereas the individuals who were making the Lego sets and they disappeared, they got torn down and put into a box so they couldn't see their progress, stopped making them. I use a lot of charts, I use a lot of checklists, and I'm checking off things that I'm doing because that is visible progress to me. Now, the last piece is to set some rules for action. When you stall or you find that you're procrastinating, use some rules to get you over that hump. There are 2 that are my favorites, and you can find these on the Action Hacks. It's a sheet you can download, and it has many more than these, but these are 2 of my favorite rules. The first one is the 2-minute rule. So create rules. My first one is the 2-minute rule. And this rule says if it's gonna take less than 2 minutes, just do it now. If it's gonna take you that short of amount of time, just do it now. The other rule that I use, which is really effective against procrastination, is the 10-minute rule. And what this says is if it's an activity or a task that I'm procrastinating and I'm not excited about doing, I will set a timer for 10 minutes and I will tell myself, okay, you're gonna work on this task for 10 minutes. When that timer goes up and your time's done, I give myself permission to stop. It's 10-minute increments. And I do that at least every day. Sometimes I will find myself doing it 2 or 3 times a day so that I get 20 or 30 minutes on an activity or task that I would otherwise procrastinate. But the ultimate goal is to say, I will do it for 10 minutes and then I give myself permission to stop. When you know that you have permission to stop after 10 minutes, it's a lot easier to push yourself through that. And guess what I find once I get there? Once I'm in the middle of it, I'm 7, 8, 9 minutes into it, I don't have the desire to stop. That thing that was keeping me from taking action is now gone because I have taken action. Now look, there are a lot of tools and resources that you can access all around how to get yourself to take action. And I'm making them available on my website so you can access them, you can download them, you can continue to watch this video, you can print out the action hacks and post them in your office or on your cubicle or next to your bed as constant reminders of how to get yourself to take action. The other thing you can do is you can download the ebook, which talks all about Cordia Harrington's story and how she got herself to take action and became phenomenally successful because of it. You can listen to her on my podcast, The Art of Strategic Reaction, and you can follow me on my social media accounts. So it's simply Kyle Brost for Instagram, Kyle_Brost for Twitter, and then Brost Kyle at Facebook. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that this information motivates and inspires you, but ultimately, I hope it gives you the tools to take action. Because once again, action is the only way to move yourself forward. All the best, my friends.